tanks on the left, like the Brookings Institution, and on the right, like the American Enterprise Institute. And they both give the same formula for success. Finish high school. Don't have a kid before you're 20 years old. Get married first. Get a job. Keep that job. Don't quit it until you get another job. And I would add one more thing, and that is avoid the criminal justice system. You do those things, you will not be poor.
And of course, there's that great book that was written, The Hillbilly Elegy. It was on the bestseller list for more than a year consecutively.
J.D. White's now Senator.
Yes, and these are people who have faced zero racism.
They are white.
And they are white and zero racism. Their family incomes were lower than the family incomes of blacks. So obviously there must be other things that cause people to be poor other than racism.
Codified segregation of public schools has been barred since Brown, but in too many of our school districts, significant divisions persist and segregation has reoccurred, including zero-tolerance school discipline practices that, while well-intentioned and aimed at promoting school safety, affect black males at a rate 3 times higher than their white peers, end of quote. Here, moral to the story, maybe, just maybe, it was the behavior of these black kids. Are you really prepared to accuse teachers, the teachers union on whom the Democratic Party depends, you know, are you willing to accuse teachers of engaging in systemic institutional racism against the very students that they signed up to teach?
Okay, so Larry Elder wants us to believe that the school to prison pipeline is just based on, just solely based on kids just being bad. That's all. You know, well, it's a little more to that, Larry. So first of all, let's define school to prison pipeline. Okay, so school to prison pipeline refers to the set of policies and practices that, listen, criminalize minor misbehavior in schools. It relies on police presence, school resource officers. I'm sure you guys have seen some of that. Policies that use zero tolerance policies and suspensions, expulsions, policies that push students, especially foundational Black Americans, into juvenile justice systems instead of guiding them towards education. That's your school to prison pipeline. So is it racialized? Yes. Okay. So disproportionate discipline for FBA students. So Black students are Black students are 3 to 4 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than white students for the same infraction. So you're going to keep hearing me say for the same actions, Blacks are dealt with more harshly. Get used to this. All right. So all the way back to preschool, and this is what Kamala Harris was trying to tackle with her Back on Track program. So yes, all the way back in preschool, FBA children are preschool children. FBA children are 8% of enrollment, just 18%, but half of preschool suspensions are our preschool children. This is the U.S. Department of Education, 2014. We make up 18% of enrollment, but half of the out of school suspension. Okay, so common infractions will be talking back, tardiness, minor classroom disruptions, not violence. So they're not hitting somebody or anybody. So it's not that Black students misbehave more, is that they are punished more harshly. You're going to keep hearing it repeat that. That's what makes them systemic. That's what makes it systemic. We do it like anybody else, but we're just punished more, or we're denied more, uh, you know, jailed more, uh, larger sentences more. Okay. So let's talk about the school resource officers, right? They call SROs. So after Columbine, RIP, 1999, many schools increased police presence, as you can imagine. But here's the thing, even with schools with low crime, and it's better to be safe than sorry. I'm not mad at that at all. They don't even want to sniff a Columbine their way, even areas with low crime. So foundational Black American schools, we received the heaviest policing, turning our hallways into mini surveillance states. All right. So why? What's going on? Minor rule breaking, like talking back or a squabble. This became a pathway to criminal charges instead of teachable moments, parenting, or I don't know, another alternative solution. But bottom line is that they're arrested for infractions that used to be handled by, the principal or other folks come talk to you and, like I said, meetings or whatever. Okay. Now, here's the danger. Suspensions increase, out of school suspensions increase dropout and arrest risk. Why? They are 3 times more likely to drop out. This is afterwards, of course. More likely to be arrested in the future, right? Because they're numb to this type of harsh punishment. Dropouts. So when you drop out, dropouts are 4 more likely to enter the criminal justice system, especially in over police opportunities. So here's the school to prison pipeline. So we just read it. So it starts, you're in school, right? That's the beginning. Then you get suspended out of school. So you're no longer in school. You're suspended. You're still a student to that school, right? You're still enrolled. Eventually, you find yourself dropping out, possibly because you get used to staying home. Hey, it's not so bad. It's kind of worse. Well, it was when I was in school and we got suspended. Like the worst thing to do is get suspended or be home. Not just suspended. I'm sorry. Forget about suspension. Let's stop that. Let's say I was sick. The worst thing for me was to be home because at that time, you only watched Little House, in the Prairie. What's that? MASH. It was none of this Cartoon Network stuff going on. And it was nothing like video games as it is now, right? So you were bored home with an adult watching the worst shows imaginable because I believe, I don't know for a fact, but I believe that that's how states and the networks did it. They did it where they didn't want kids to enjoy being home. So I'm sick. I'm like, nah, I'm going to school. But nowadays, there's a lot to do, a lot to occupy kids by being home. There's no real punishment staying home. Just want to share that little story. Anyway, so it's even easier to drop out now because there's so much stuff to get involved with that seems like it's fun. That's not named a gang or street activities, but those are also there as well. Okay, so it starts in school, you get suspended out of school, you start enjoying your time home, where you're not looking at schools as an asset as much, and that leads to a dropout. Now, when you drop out, you're more likely, far more likely to enter the criminal justice system, especially in over-policed communities, right? There's a lot of gangs out there, a lot of bad people out there waiting to recruit you. That's why I say that if your kid is acting like that, it's better to send that person to military school. Don't get drafted by the military, not the damn streets. So watch this. One suspension increases the likelihood of future arrests by 2 times. All right. So root causes, right? Beyond student behavior. Watch this. Implicit bias. Teachers interpret Black behavior as more threatening. So if we backtalk, it's seen as, oh my God, call the cops. But if a white person backtalks, it's seen as, you're being rude. You listen to me. Okay. So now you got the zero tolerance policies. One size fits all punishments for minor issues. So it's always suspension, suspension, suspension. Then we're dealing with over policing. Police presence increases arrest, not safety, as you can imagine. They come after the fact. Underfunded schools, which we know so much about. Lack of counselors, social workers, and support staff. And then you got tracking and segregation. So minority students, were really Foundation Black Americans, are pushed into remedial, non-academic tracks. Okay, so is it really about bad kids, Larry? No. It's about how school systems respond differently to students based on race, zip code, and class. White students get second chances. Foundation Black American students get suspensions. Police or court dates. Right. So the school to prison pipeline is not about student behavior alone. It's about a racialized and punitive system that pushes certain groups, i.e. FBA, more harshly and blocks educational opportunity. It reflects how racism, not misbehavior, determines the path many students take. So it's not that FBA kids are bad, it's that the system is set up to treat our bad kids like criminals in training, and they treat white bad kids as a learning lesson. Like, hey, man, we can get over this.
Now, disparate sentencing. In our criminal justice system, systemic, unwarranted racial disparities remain disturbingly common. Disparate outcomes are not only shameful and unacceptable, they impede our ability to see that justice is done. A criminal justice system that treats groups of people differently and punishes them unequally has a much more negative impact than misguided words that we can reject out of hand, end of quote. It is true that a Black criminal defendant will get a sentence 19.5% longer than a white criminal defendant who commits the same crime. What's also true is that the U.S. Sentencing Commission says this disparity can be explained away by legitimate factors. Judges make sentencing decisions based on many legitimate considerations that are not or cannot be measured, end of quote.
All right. So Larry Elder, he acts like, hey, man, some judges, they consider certain things, and that might lead to their decision on why they extend longer sentences for Foundation Black Americans and others don't. Okay. So, it's not systemic. It's not racially systemic. So while obviously it is true that judges, before they make a sentence, right, a ruling, or give a sentence or make a ruling, they look at, they consider prior criminal record, the severity of the crime, obviously, plea agreements, things like that. But in spite of all that, the data still shows overwhelmingly that foundational Black Americans, us as defendants, when we become defendants, we consistently receive harsher sentences than white defendants for the same or similar offenses, even after controlling for these variables. That's just a fact. So yes, Larry Elder, racial sentencing disparities are a real, well-documented example of systemic racism, not just anecdotal or coincidental like you would try to make it be. Okay. So what does the evidence actually shows? If you look at the U.S. Sentencing Commission report of 2017, it reaffirmed in 2022. So we got an update. What does it say? Black male offenders received 19.1% longer sentences on average than white male offenders for the same crimes. For the same crimes, all right? We get a longer sentence, 19.1%. This disparity remains after accounting for criminal history, offense severity, and other legal factors. I know y'all going to run there. Even when judges had full discretion, let's say after mandatory sentencing guidelines were restricted or lifted in 2005, disparities worsened, showing implicit bias in practice. So even when judges had full discretion, this is after mandatory sentencing guideline restrictions were lifted in 2005. So mandatory minimum sentence is, let's say, they say, carjacking as a mandatory minimum of 10 years. This is hypothetical. So if you was charged and convicted with carjacking, the judge maybe could sentence you higher than 10 years, but the minimum, he could not sentence you under 10 years. That is a mandatory minimum sentence, right? So that's what that means. So if it's 5 years, 3 years, they cannot go lower than that. All right. So now let's look at University of Michigan law study in 2014. When controlling for variables like criminal history, type of crime, plea versus trial jurisdiction, Black defendants still received 11% longer sentences than white. So we still keep seeing this racial disparity. Disparities aren't just about facts. They reflect how justice is applied. So now let's look at plea bargaining, right? Black defendants are less likely to receive reduced charges in plea deals, more likely to be charged with crimes that carry mandatory minimums. That means they can't sentence you no lower than the minimum requirement. Okay, this is a Vera Institute and Stanford studies. So this results in higher baseline charges and thus longer sentences, even before sentencing begins. So mandatory minimum sentences kind of get rid of discretion to a degree. So a judge can't say, okay, 2 years. Nope. They got to stick with the mandatory minimum sentence. They cannot go under that number. They can go higher, but they can't go under. Okay, so what about judicial discretion? That's what Larry talked about. Yes, judges weigh in. They factor these things before sentencing. They factor remorse. That's why, you got thugs in there acting tough. Okay. Courtroom behavior, family crying and going crazy. Support networks. Employment status, education. They look at all that before they make their ruling a lot of the times. But the issue is implicit bias affects how judges interpret these unquantifiable factors. If they already believe you're a criminal, you're lazy, you're looking for welfare, you're a deadbeat dad, if they already believe that you got 7 baby daddies, it might be false. But if this is the picture that's being plastered above you, right, on top of you, this is why we need our never again moment. We cannot allow, people to paint us as like less than, you dig in 2025. The judges, they're human beings. They might not even be part of the system, like far as like this Bilderberger type thing. They might just be a regular individual, but they are also impacted by what they hear on Fox 5, or they stumble across Larry Elder. You dig? Like this stuff, they're humans. It's going to affect them. It's going to shape their mind, probably subconsciously, and they make a ruling based off that. Okay, so here's an example. A Black defendant without a college degree may be seen as a higher risk than a white defendant with the same profile. So they got the same profile, but the Black person is seen as more aggressive, and you'll hear Jared Taylor talk about that. Let's go to his debate with Tariq. Okay, so these legitimate considerations can be infected with subjective bias, especially when they are not transparent or standardized. Okay, so now we're talking about systemic racism. How's it defined? Okay, so let's just be clear here. Systemic racism isn't just individual prejudice. It's when institutions produce racially unequal outcomes, even without overt racism. So it don't got to be something extreme that's going to make the news and get folks to chant BLM. The criminal justice system does exactly that. Watch this. Racial profiling, more arrests of Black men, unequal bail setting, more pretrial jail time for Black defendants, unequal plea deals, harsher initial charges for Blacks, sentencing discretion, longer prison terms for same crimes. So Black and whites can commit the same crime under the same conditions. Both maybe grew up with one parent, mother, both had, lived in poverty, both dropped out of school, maybe ninth grade, both were on drugs, both were in the gang. Black guy, more time. Or, the plea deal is better for the white guy. All those lenient outcomes are better for the white guy. So, Larry, you can't just leave it up to, no, it's a judicial judgment. Nah, disparities come from judicial nuance, not racism. That's what Larry tells you. Disparities come from judicial nuance, not racism. The judges factor these things, and it's a coincidence that all these judges disfavor the Black defendant over compared to the white. So this is back to Larry Elder and those who repeat that garbage. If judicial discretion consistently yield racial disparities across thousands of cases, just a coincidence. Even after accounting for the relevant
this is another weak
then
and goofy
that
talking
pattern
point.
is systemic. That's the definition of systemic racism. Judicial nuance does not explain why white offenders with the same background get lighter sentences nationwide, Larry. Bias doesn't need to be intentional to be harmful. It just needs to be embedded in practice and repeated over time, man. So racial sentencing disparities are not a myth or purely anecdotal, Larry. They are measurable, repeatable, and institutionalized, making them a textbook case of systemic racism, the word that y'all hate to hear and repeat. Judicial discretion, while a real factor, often amplifies existing racial biases rather than neutralizing them. So they want to run from that and act like it's just a judicial nuance is not racism. It's just a coincidence of these disparities in sentencing. But this is real, man. And we gotta be on this, man. Forget about trying to convince them. Not like their mind is made up, that they're all in. All their chips is on the table. You dig? They're all in for us.
Another frequently cited example of the institutional racism that supposedly exists in America is the fact that would-be borrowers are turned down at a higher rate for mortgage applications.
According to a new report, Black people in Baltimore received less than half as many mortgages as their white neighbors. Black people make up the majority of the city's population. White Baltimoreans looking to buy homes were approved for mortgages 75% of the time, compared to 61% for Black applicants.
True. Would-be Black borrowers are turned down at a higher rate than would-be white borrowers, who in fact are turned down at a higher rate than would-be Asian borrowers. Now, are the banks discriminating against white people in favor of Asians? And by the way, Black-owned community banks turn down would-be Black applicants at least the same rate as do the majority white banks.
Okay, so the claim whites get turned down for loans more often than Asians. So if Blacks get turned down more than whites, that's just how banking works. Nothing systemic racist about this. Okay. Yeah, as you can believe, Asians and a lot of these minority groups, as I explained before, they come here at like some of are the top 5 of their homelands. So you expect them, so it's expected for them to thrive like no other. Definitely, you compare them to the populace of a country. So yes, some Asian subgroups have higher approval rates for loans and businesses or business financing than white applicants. Yeah, they do. But why? Is it because they're chosen because these banks love Asians, the Asian race, more than they love the white race? No. Or are there barriers to now block white people? No. This is largely due to high credit scores, lower debt ratios, strong savings, and hyper selected immigration policies. Okay, so that does not disprove systemic racism. Okay, systemic racism is about unequal treatment, not who's on top. So that's equal treatment for an Asian person with that profile to be selected over a white person with an inferior profile. That's about right. That's equality. That's fairness. So systemic racism doesn't require white people to always be the most privileged. Now that will be unfair if white folks get the loan just because they're white, regardless of the Asian, clean profile. Okay, so it just requires consistent systemic racism, race-based disadvantages toward a specific group. That's what systemic racism is. Okay, I defined it before in the old video. Systemic racism keeps one group at the top and the other at the bottom. That's what it does. It's a seesaw. It's lopsided. So if black applicants with the same credit, income, and loan profiles are still denied more often than white applicants, that is evidence of systemic racism, because you're supposed to just compare the profiles. If this profile is better, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, those type of things, that person is supposed to qualify for whatever that's out there. But if they're not qualifying based off those things I just mentioned, that's systemic racism. You're lopsiding the playing field on purpose. You're favoring a group over another group, regardless of whom or what. Okay, so let's look at the proof. So the Federal Reserve Bank in 2019 to 2022, black mortgage applicants are 80% more, 80%, 8 out of 10, more likely to be denied than white applicants. Damn. Even when controlling for income, credit, and debt to income ratios. So they're looking at even profiles, still 80% likely to be denied. Urban Institute and HUD reports, HUD, white, Asian, and Hispanic applicants all had higher ownership rates and loan access than black Americans, FBAs, at every income level. Every income level. That's systemic. Okay, so you're asking, oh, how these Hispanics getting these loans? Well, there you go. Their favorite class. Okay, so the fact that some Asians outperform whites in loan approval does not erase the fact that foundational black Americans are disproportionately denied. It just means the system benefits those with the most access, capital, and status. Okay, so he said, well, black banks, they deny loans to black applicants at the same rate as white banks. So racial bias can't be the issue because the black banks do it too. Okay, yeah, some black-owned banks deny black applicants for loans at similar rates to traditional banks. Okay, cool. Watch this. Black banks, this is going to hurt. Black banks operate within a racist financial system. Okay. Black banks have fewer assets, face limited access to capital. I'm going to go into this later about black banks, another video. They serve higher risk borrowers due to redlining and generational poverty. So black folks who get denied at traditional banks that might have a lower credit profile they go to the black banks. Why? Because they're black banks, so they got to look me out. So they're getting turned around, right? So they're serving higher risk borrowers, due to redlining and generational poverty. So they often don't have the financial cushion to take on riskier loans, even if they wanted to. They don't have the capital to do it. Black banks are not rejecting foundational Black American applicants because of racism, but because they are forced to operate under the same unequal rules set by a system that has undercapitalized and restricted them for over a century. So they make sure they don't have the capital to take on these risks. All right. So here's the problem. Small customer base, right, with black banks. Here's the problem with black banks, why they're boxed in. Small customer base due to redlining and segregation, right? Low capital reserves, denied access to federal deposits and contracts. These banks deprived. Higher risk clients. Black communities have lower average credit due to past exclusion. Regulatory pressure, harsher oversight than white banks. You better believe that. They're making sure no loans go out. Okay, so when a black bank denies a loan, it's not proof that race doesn't matter, like they want you to believe. It's proof that race has been weaponized against the whole system they operate in. Okay, so saying systemic racism doesn't exist because a black bank denies a black customer is like saying water isn't wet because a fish swims in it. You're right. Water isn't wet because a fish swims in it. So black banks are swimming in a sea of systemic racism, from underfunding to lack of federal support to historical disinvestment. Like I said, I'm going to cover how black banks historically were sabotaged, undermined, underfunded, all that stuff, racial barriers, so they can fail, so they can't help contribute to black FBA generational wealth. But look, Larry Elder arguments, okay? They ignore historical context, redlining GI Bill. You have to do this. You have to do this. They ignore historical context, redlining, GI Bill, FHA exclusion. They oversimplify complex systems, hyperselectivity versus oppression. He cherry picks exceptions to deny systemic patterns. So foundational Black Americans were never given equal entry into the wealth building system. That's just a fact. And the rules today still carry the weight of that exclusion, even when it shows up through neutral looking numbers.
How do you explain that Chinese Americans who were victimized by racism, in fact, they were the first nationality to be excluded by the Chinese Immigration Act? How do you explain that they have a higher net income than do whites? How do you explain that Japanese Americans have a higher household income than do whites? How do you explain that Korean Americans have a higher net income than do whites? How do you explain Nigerian Americans have a higher net income, household income than do whites? These are matters of behavior, matters of choices. There's nothing stopping anybody Black from succeeding in America.
Okay, so here we are. Racism doesn't exist because of immigrant groups like Asians, Nigerian Americans have higher average incomes or GDP than white Americans, Black Americans. Okay, this is a false equivalence, and it reflects a misunderstanding of how systemic racism operates. Now, I already explained about hyperselection, brain drain, brain gain, brain waste, all that stuff on my channel so many times over. So we already know about this one. Okay, so obviously some subgroups like Indian Americans, Chinese Americans, Nigerian Americans, they do have higher median household incomes than the national average, which would include whites. All right. Here's the thing though. which we already know. These groups are not historical victims of American systemic racism. Okay, one more time. These groups are not historical victims of American systemic racism in the same way we are FBAs. Many of those immigrant groups are highly selected, okay, when they're admitted to the U.S., unless they came illegally or as asylum seeker or refugee, I don't know, visa lottery, but in most cases, they are highly selected. So they're admitted to the U.S. through education or skill-based immigration systems, not due to race equality. So they're not bringing these guys in because of racial equality, but rather immigration policy designed to favor the educated, the elite class. They're talented too. Okay, so let's look at the data. So the median household, okay, the median household income, let's say 2022, Indian American, 120,000 a year. Nigerians, 68,000 to 72,000. White Americans, 77,000, and Black Americans, $52,000 annually. This comes from the U.S. Census Bureau, Pew Research Migration Policy Institute. So, Larry, some of these immigrant groups do earn more than Americans, Black and white. But just because they earn more, that doesn't mean it invalidates systemic racism. Okay, let's look at the facts. Okay, so we got to go back to hyper selection. So those who are new to the channel, you probably didn't learn when I went into hyper selection before. I actually got that from Tone Talks. All right, so anyway, a Nigerian and an Asian American, right? Those groups. The majority of these populations in the U.S. come from the top, listen, the top 5 to 10% of their home country. So these folks that's over here that you're trying to compare us to as foundational Black Americans, these immigrants, these elite groups, they come from the top 5% of their country. This is their best of the best. So of course they're going to flourish. They're the most educated. Some are very wealthy. They are pre-selected for success. America knows that they're going to have a high chance of being successful. It boosts the economy and makes America look great. It helps out with tech, and they have other innovative ideas. Okay, so they're college educated, they speak English, and they're professional. So 59% of Nigerian Americans have at least a bachelor's degree compared to 33% of all white and Black Americans together. So you could say 60% of the Nigerians that come over here, 60%, 6 out of 10, have at least a 4-year degree, bachelor's. Now here's the difference. Foundational Black Americans, we are descendants of enslavement, right? We have no history of voluntary immigration or general wealth. So they're coming to the country different how we came to the country. So don't forget that. Don't forget the people who they compare us to, our entry to the countries are different. So we had over 200 years of slavery, Jim Crow laws, redlining, mass incarceration, discriminatory bills like the GI bills, FHA loans, which I go over, and Social Security exclusions, just to name a few. Okay, so I mean, anybody that stand on real integrity won't dare compare a voluntary elite migrant group to a group systemically blocked from accessing the same opportunities for centuries. Okay. Systemic racism is about barriers. It's about being blocked out, excluded, not just outcomes. Okay. So systemic racism doesn't mean no foundational Black American can succeed. Because you will hear a lot of callers call in Tariq Nasheed and say, hey, man, what's blocking you? What's blocking you? You got money. You did it. What's so nothing's stopping you? This can't be real. How are you able to succeed and thrive? Well, so systemic racism doesn't mean, individuals can't thrive. The system rather creates unequal barriers to succeed based on race, ethnicity, skin color. So everybody ain't built the same. That's the bottom line. Some people can endure more. Some people can tolerate more. But why are you enduring and tolerating at all? White people do not endure and tolerate nowhere near at the level we endure because it's based on race and ethnicity. They're white. So what are they enduring? Racism in this country is about Black and white. If you're white, you're not enduring racism. Therefore, you're not enduring these barriers. Okay, so even when success is achieved, Foundation of Black Americans, the cost is often higher, the opportunity narrower, and the exceptions are used to discredit the rule, right? So when y'all talk about Tariq Nasheed or whoever else you believe is successful, they escaped through a narrow door. Okay, the opportunity was narrow. Everybody can't fit. But it's not designed, systemic racism is not designed to block everybody out. Like, that type of system was like slavery. It's designed to block everybody out, but it ain't like that today. Like some can squeeze through. Okay, but again, everybody ain't built the same. Some people are more emotional, where they give up. Some people will crash out. I had enough. But you shouldn't be giving up or crashing out because those barriers should not be there in the first place. I got to keep reiterating. Now let's talk about Nigerians, right? Those are our brothers from the continent. And Asians, right? Let's talk about Asians as well. Okay, so to keep comparing us to Asians, and they keep doing it, and Nigerians, this argument obviously is used to invalidate Black grievances. Okay, stop complaining. These folks just got here. They're doing this. They're doing that. Elite people, top 5% of the country, though. So, but this erases history and ignores ongoing discrimination. Okay, so employment discrimination, e.g., identical resumes with Black sounding names get fewer callbacks. Y'all know that. I know you will say, hey, well, you need to take on more of a Anglo name, American name, white Tommy, Bill, whatever. So home loan denials, right? That's us. That's a barrier. The name. So if your name is Buquan, that's a barrier. If your name, if you're denied a home loan, that's a barrier of race. So disparities in sentencing that we just took a look at. Policing, healthcare, and education. Okay. So the logic is like saying some people survived a fire, so the fire wasn't deadly. So you escaped the house fire, right? You got out in time. Everybody, whole family, 50 people got out in time. Nobody died. So the fire isn't deadly because you escaped the fire. That's a stupid analogy. So systemic racism is not disproven by the success of some racial minorities who are highly selected, who come from the top 5% in education, class, wealth of their country. All right. No. They come often with state sponsor advantages. So Nigerian and Asian success reflects selective immigration, not racial equality. Foundation of Black Americans' disadvantage reflects centuries of racial exclusion, not lack of effort, as they keep trying to make you believe.
Hear those stats, you don't believe that systemic racism is in America anymore. So what would you attribute these numbers to?
Oh, for crying out loud.
Disparities do not mean systemic racism. Disparities mean disparities. For example, a black married man has the same unemployment rate as do whites.
Okay, here we go again. So is it true that black married couples have similar unemployment rates as white married couples? Yes. Okay. Yes. Similar unemployment rates. Yes. But to be unemployed means you were first working. And where were you working at? It'd be McDonald's. Okay, look, in some studies and time frames, black married men or couples who are employed tend to have unemployment rates that are somewhat closer to those of white people, white married couples. But where's the catch? Marriage, listen, getting married does not eliminate systemic racism. Okay, we gotta just, what are we doing? It filters who's able to compete in the first place. Okay, so that's a misleading bad faith argument. Okay, because it ignores who gets to become married. Watch this. Marriage is not evenly distributed across racial groups. Watch this. Let's look at some numbers. So as of recent years, 30% of black adults are married, while 52% of white adults are married. This means this married group is already self-selecting for economic stability. All right, watch this. It ignores overall racial employment disparities. Let's talk about the job industry. Watch this. Okay, let's look at overall unemployment rates in 2023. White, 3.4%. Black, 5.6%. Almost double. So even with education and experience, black people face higher unemployment than whites at every level of attainment. That cannot be ignored. So it's correlation, not causation. The argument implies that marriage causes economic equality, but in reality, stable income makes marriage more likely, not the other way around. A woman ain't trying to marry a bum ninja. Okay? Get a job. So many black men are excluded from marriage because of mass incarceration, right? Underemployment, right? And poverty. So these are the results of systemic racism. You ain't get married if you're in prison like that. In one, few people, underemployed, come on, and poverty. Like, stop. Like, you're not what women are looking at that can be a breadwinner. So marriage doesn't solve racism because you're married. Racism is poof, gone. Okay, it just filters out the people most hurt by it. So watch this. Even when married, because marriage is the solution, right? All right, well, let's look at the disparities when folks are married by race. Okay, white married households. Okay, so the median income in 2022, 111,000 white married households. Look at blacks, 84,000. Okay, so what happened? We're married. Why aren't the income the same? Doesn't marriage escape racism? How about home ownership rates? In 2022, white folks, 76%, black people, 52%. But I thought marriage was the answer. What about wealth, net worth? White folks, way more higher than blacks. So even if unemployment appears equal, wealth, wages, and opportunity are still unequal. Systemic racism affects far more than just whether someone has a job, okay? Because where are you working at? How much you're getting paid? That matters. So black married couples have much lower unemployment than unmarried. It's a fact. Black individuals may be closer to white married couples in employment rates. But this does not prove systemic racism does not exist. Right? They keep doing the false equivalence. It actually proves the opposite. Only black people who pass the test of marriage, employment, and education can begin to access what white people are often born into, not married into. And even then, the gap still persists, as we just read.
And of course, there's that great book that was written, The Hillbilly Elegy. It was on the bestseller list for more than a year consecutively.
J.D.
And
White's now Senator Vance.
yes, and these are people who have faced zero racism.
They are white.
And they're white and zero racism. So it was clearly not biological. It was social. But despite that, these hillbilly counties had incomes that were not only lower than the national average, they were lower than the average of black incomes for a period of half a century. It may have been longer than that because I only went through half a century. But in every study that was done over that half century, they scored lower. Their family incomes were lower than the family incomes of blacks. So obviously there must be other things that cause people to be poor other than racism.
All right, so it's Thomas Sowell turn. Okay, so he mentions Hillbilly Elegy. This book is by J.D. Vance, a Yale Law School graduate raised in a poor, working class Appalachian family, originally from Kentucky, raised in Ohio. Okay, so the main things of the book, right? It breaks down traditional family structures, drug addiction, social decay, personal responsibility versus victimhood, economic stagnation and disillusionment, cultural fatalism in poor white communities. Okay, so now let's look what the book gets right. Cultural disconnection in whites, right, in their working class America. So the book describes how many poor whites feel alienated, distrustful of institutions, and trapped in cycles of despair. All right. So this is their mind state. So it captures a culture of fatalism, low expectations, and resentment toward outsiders, especially elites and government. These guys are potential MAGAs. Okay. So opioid addiction and family instability. So vivid personal accounts of family dysfunction, trauma, and multi-generational addiction. His mother struggled with heroin. Sheesh. Accurately documents how trauma and domestic instability can shape children's behavior and limit future success. Okay, economic stagnation is the Rust Belt. Notes how globalization, deindustrialization, and job outsourcing left communities like Middletown, Ohio, economically hollowed out. Job outsourcing, definitely MAGA. Vance observes firsthand the collapse of once secure factory jobs. We can relate to this. And their effect on masculinity and pride. Now, that's cool. But look at what it does. Here are some of the cons. So the overemphasis on culture, underemphasis on systems. All right. They want to talk about accountability. Okay. So Vance blames poverty mainly on cultural dysfunction. He'll say bad attitudes, laziness, lack of work ethic. So the book ignores or downplays systemic economic shifts like outsourcing. You just said shipping jobs overseas, union busting, and deregulation. All right. Policy failures, right? Cuts to social safety nets, healthcare, education, things like that. What about corporate exploitation of rural labor and resources, right? He doesn't consider that. So critics, they argue that he blames the poor for being poor, ignoring structural forces that limit choices. Okay, so the book goes into the whole bootstrap mentality. Oh boy, here we go. So Vance presents his personal success. So he's basing it on what he did and how he overcame. Don't forget, sometimes the door for opportunity is narrow. Everybody can't fit through. So the person who got lucky or was the first in line or somehow by default squeezed through, he can't look back and say, "Hey, it's your fault. Y'all ain't get through." No, the door of opportunity should not be that damn slim. So again, he presents his personal success, right? Escaping poverty via the Marines. He went to the military, college afterwards, and then Yale for law. Okay, but he presents his personal success as proof anyone can do it. Okay, but this ignores the rare combination of luck, mentors, and opportunities that he had access to. He had access to this. Not everybody has access to all this stuff, these resources. Okay, but once person's escape is not a blueprint for systemic uplift. That's what they keep doing. I did it, so everybody can do it. Okay, that's how most scammers get you to buy into their little pyramid schemes. Political agenda. The book helped fuel conservatives' talking points, as you can imagine, that poverty is a personal failure, right? Not a systemic issue. Vance has since entered politics, as you can imagine. Is he MAGA? Or was he? Or could he have been? Would he have been? And he aligned with right-wing populism, furthering the idea that liberal policies are to blame for decline. So many see hillbilly elegy as a cultural Trojan's horse for anti-welfare ideology. All right. So let's look at it. So the cause of poverty, right? Hillbilly elegy says culture and personal responsibility, systemic racism, culture, inequality. So the book says the cause of poverty is culture and personal responsibility, but what causes FBA's poverty is systemic racism, culture, inequality. Okay. So he talks about role of government. He says it's often harmful or ineffective. Now, this is after they benefit from it, by the way. After they benefit from it, then they condemn it and say, "Oh, it's a terrible tool," but it helped old boy level up. Okay. Well, what's the role of government when it concerns FBAs? It's essential to fixing long-standing injustice. So they want to dismiss it when they use it and abuse it, and now it can become a tool for us. Now, no, government's terrible. You'll hear Candace Owens talk about that. Okay, the blame game. So Vance blames poor white people values and behavior. So he'll say it was your values and behavior that kept you poor. Well, what's the blame with us? We say policies, discrimination, intergenerational trauma. Okay, now Vance says this is how you make it out. He says individual grit and resilience. Oh, strong American. What do we say? We say our path out is just collective justice, equity, reform, reparations. So the bottom line is that, is there any truth to hillbilly elegy? Yes, it's a personal story. Working class despair and cultural insight, but it falls short by minimizing structural causes and pushing an ideological narrative that frames poverty as a moral and culture failure. You'll hear Thomas Sowell and Larry Elder talk about that a lot. So if you're looking to understand poverty holistically, this book is only one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Anecdotal experience. Wow.
Hey, yo, 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 yo. Listen, man, the number, if you want the number, let me know. I got a guy I'm in a chat with, a phone chat with. He said I ain't cooking. I guess he's a conservative. Call in. Call in. He said, you only got 10 people watching, 13 watching. Hey, bro, listen, man. When you go live, it's based on what time you go and what day it is. Okay, Friday is the worst time to go live for smaller podcasts. You dig? So, hey, yo, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock is never my targeted time. But so if I go live around this time, family, it's because I just finished the video and this is the time I'm going to produce it. Matter of fact, this video was supposed, this produced video was supposed to have been already like live, Monday? So I'm already like 2-3 days behind. So it's like, yo, once it got finished, whatever time I got, that is what it is. Okay, so just keep in mind, I would love to go live. I have my time. Like YouTube tells you, you know, your analytics tell you your best time to go live, how much viewers you get. Okay, so old boy who is in this phone chat with me, he just said he's been a hater of me almost all my life. Ever since I kicked his ass one-on-one basketball, he's just been hating me. But you know, it's what it is, what it is. And I didn't even tag him. I tagged somebody else. He pulled up because he's a conservative. But I got the phone number. If you want the phone number, call in. Why you worry about the live viewers? You should be looking at the argument, the rebuttals I'm giving to your guides. Your guide is Thomas Sowell and Larry Elder. They got cooked. Okay? These are guys with flawful arguments that I just cooked. And just to let you know, who was it, Ricardo? Yeah, no, bro. The independent thing is a lie. Dude, if you're a foundational Black American, if you're ADOS, that means your wealth was stripped. You started from zero, bro. Ain't no independence. Nobody in this country is successful because they're independent. Everybody in this country are successful because they got assistance. All right? And you starting from zero, you ain't going to do SHIT. You're going to get assistance like everybody else if you want to be successful. And even though reparations is owed to us, it's still something we didn't access ourselves today. Okay, so that still could be seen as assistance. Yeah, so let's not, lie to ourselves and believe we can just do the 1.3 billion or trillion spent and provide it amongst ourselves, and that's reparations. No, it's not. No, it's not. All right, so I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm not going to let Thomas Sowell and Larry Elder lie to you either. You dig? I'm going to give y'all the raw truth. And that's why reparations is needed, is because of the raw truth. It's because, family, we can't do it independently. Too much wealth was extracted, stole, and stripped from us. Start from zero? Nah, ain't nobody in this country successful starting from zero. Every last person in this country got assistance, or they were highly selected and they came into this country with means already. But ain't nobody come here and start from zero. How was those North Sentinel Indians doing, by the way? That's ground zero. How are they doing? They're out there wearing skirts and leaves to cover their private parts, and they're using arrows to kill fish. Like, come on, stop. Okay, and matter of fact, yeah, Kwame just talking. I'm gonna do a video on Banks. He said, Madam C.J. Walker. Well, I'm gonna give you Maggie Lena Walker on Banks, and I'm gonna show you how Black banks were underfunded, restricted, regulated to a different degree, where they could not be successful. Like they were left in the savings category. Like they were not allowed to get into the investment category. I'm gonna do a whole live just on how white America, systemic racism, sabotage, undermined it, regulated, restricted Black banks so they could not be successful. They cannot grow large. and be a major force like you see the TD Banks and the Wells Fargo. So don't kid yourself. Don't listen to coons like the dude that's talking shit in the chat, and don't listen to tethers like Kwame and American Dream. Right? You want to know something, you come here or you call in and get cooked. So I was supposed to talk to a conservative black man yesterday, and then it was today, but he it just a miscommunication. He said certain time, he's in central's, zone. I'm in eastern, so that was crazy. And then somehow I'm communicating the conference number on today, this morning, and the Zoom live, the Zoom link, and he couldn't get it because like the comment section on YouTube is like really sensitive and it don't like a lot of numbers or links. So I got his email. So now we will talk tomorrow morning. And he's a conservative, black conservative. He got the same talking point. Well, he borrows the talking points from Larry Elder and Thomas Sowell, and so I already know what to expect. He don't know what rebuttals there are that I have, so he's in for a good one. Iconic piece, man. And my man said, "You only got 10 likes." I said, "Dude, ask American Dream how hard it is to get." No, he said, "You only got 10 live viewers." I said, "My man, ask American Dream how hard it is to get people, one person to watch you." American Dream knows. So yeah, but a lot of it is time and day. And right now, this ain't the ideal time to go live for me, but sometimes you take whatever window you can get when it becomes available. All right. I've been trying to do this live since Monday. Obviously, early mornings is best for me. And that's why I'm talking to the black conservative tomorrow morning. You get it, Coon, that's in the phone chat. I'm not talking to him tomorrow 4 p.m. I'm talking to him tomorrow early morning. That works better for me. Peace, Donnie. So, but anyway, y'all know how I do. And what he doesn't know, because he comes to the platform just hating. All my videos are like near 1,000 views. So it don't matter how the live stream ends with 200, 400. They all creep up to the 1,000 views within less than a month. And that's because I got true support. People just busy. And 4 p.m. isn't their best time, crazy guy. Because they're in the West Pacific time. They're in Central. They're in different time zones and they're working. They got things going on. So that that's not a big thing for me. It could be 3 live viewers. What do I do anyway, family? What do I do, family? I re-upload it. So now my most viral video for the coon in the chat room who's listening, my most viral video, I just re-uploaded for like the umpteenth time. And it is more viral than it's ever been. And that's the Professor Small Disintegrate Nashi. I'm going on 10K views on that one in less than 2 weeks. I'm going on 10K views. All right. That's a re-upload for the umpteenth time. So I know what I'm doing, bro. I know what I'm doing. So sometimes I know certain time of days doesn't hit. So hey, I re-upload it to another to the right time. So this video right here, you hating people who want to know? Yes, this video right here, I'm going to re-upload it later, maybe next week, but I'm going to re-upload it at the time where I get my most views. There's something called YouTube analytics. They tell you when most people view your stuff. I already knew around this time was bad, but it's good for me and what I got going on today because I got other videos pending that I got to push out. So I'm gonna do a recap today, actually. Next on Jared Taylor and Tariq Nasheed debate. That's coming next. All right. So G, you dig? American Dream be having like one person watching. That's probably his grandmother. But yeah, so my videos go. It don't matter how they start. They end up at no less than 1K views. And that's the leverage I use to get people to come over and have a dialogue with me. That's why I got a black conservative coming tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time or 10 a.m., something like that. It's 9 a.m. Central time. So I think that's like 10 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah, because I use my views as leverage to get folks over here and have these dialogues. That's why I tell my family support and even go back and like videos you did not even see or watch. Go back to my video archive. Go to the look. Here's the thing. Don't just check my live videos. Go to the ones that are not live and go and like those as well. You guys are helping me gain leverage to get folks over here to have these conversations because most feathers and coons are clout chasers. Clout chasers. They just want to see what viewership you have. You see the clown in the phone chat that I'm in. He cared about views. He didn't care about content. He cared about views. He didn't care about rebuttals. He cared about views. You see? So these Sambos, these Uncle Tom and Coons and Tethers, they care, white supremacists, they care about clout. So I need my FBA ADOS family to go back and watch the videos you've never seen before. Go to the live ones and go to at least the 10th, 11th most recent video uploads and go to the live videos and just press like. That's not really difficult to do. You're supporting the channel. If you ain't gonna do that, then go to that pin Cash App and hit that then, but you got to show support. Otherwise, I'm gonna take my talents to South Beach. You dig? But I gotta feel appreciated, especially when I'm sticking up and defending my lineage. That should be worth something. At least I like. So so Pan-Nigerian, I'm going to recap. You said he got washed. I don't know about that, Pan-Nigerian. Matter of fact, call in. Call in. Let's do the review together and you show me where Tariq got washed. Now, I don't believe he won every point. I do believe some arguments he took that he should not have taken, and Jared Taylor had the momentum. All right. So I ain't gonna sit here and act like it was a one-way debate. Jared Taylor had moments where he was, doing very well. But at the back during the second half of the debate, that's when Tariq washed him. So, but again, anybody can call in, and we could, or matter of fact, for this one, don't call in. Like I seen the link. If you call in, you won't watch it in real time like me. You'll get the 10-second delay. But if you are interested in going over Tariq versus Jared Taylor debate, which I'm going to do very shortly, in the next like 15, 20 minutes, just ask for the link and you tell me where Jared Taylor was winning. And if I believe that's some points, I'll say it. But we got to watch the entire debate. So when Tariq start kicking butt, I want to ask you, is Jared Taylor still winning? Because Jared Taylor went to pseudoscience at some point. You dig? Okay. So, matter of fact, Kwame, I told you, brother, tread lightly as a moderator. I gotta remove your wrench, bro. Yo, these tethers just cannot handle a wrench. It's like, yo, if I give you a wrench, tread lightly, make valid points. Don't sit here and say FBA say we're taking jobs. Some FBAs make that argument, but some don't, bro. It's 43 million of us, man. It's just stupid. That's like me condemning all of Jamaica based on Kwame and the Dream Guy. Like, come on. I ain't that dumb. I'll say tethers. I won't say FBAs. I'll say tethers make this argument. Tethers say this. That's separating legit, bona fide island, Caribbean, West Indian people from tethers. Yeah, I had to take his wrench, man. My man just flipping out. Well, Pan-Nigerian. You know what was embarrassing is when you debated me. That was embarrassing. You knew absolutely nothing. And you're so traumatized, you won't even call back in. Pan-Nigerian, you are so traumatized after I washed you. You don't even want to try to redeem yourself. You won't even try a part two, a second chance, a rematch. I even position or propose. I propose this to Pan-Nigerian. I said, bro, this time I will let you do most of the talking and I'll just be quiet. And I said, I will only talk when you say you're done or when I believe you're being redundant, saying the same thing over and over or filibustering, because I don't want you to talk for an hour, say the type of ball game. But you did make your point, make your point, be exhaustive, but be considerate that I want to talk, rebut. So I even proposed a Pan-Nigerian call. If you think I was over talking you, okay, how about this? Call back in, you do most of the talking, and I will have as much time as you had our first conversation. And it's not going to make a difference. You're going to be washed the same way. My man ran like hell. And he's in the chat talking about everything but calling back in to redeem himself. Hey, bro, I embarrassed you. So at the very least, you want to, redeem your name, Pan-Nigerian. At the very least. Okay. And then look, he keeps saying I had to mute him. Yes. The mute button. Hey, bro, the mute button is there for a reason. It's to mute people. Just like the hang up button is there on your phone. It's to hang up on people. What the hell? I can't access that. I can't access the tools to my damn Zoom that Zoom provided me. If you're over talking me and I say, hey, bro, let me go, and you keep talking as a guest, you're not the host, you're not a co-host, yes, you will be muted. Why are you surprised? That's a feature Zoom offers the host. A Pan-Nigerian. That's a tool Zoom offers the host, not the guest. You get it? Okay. So now what I was saying was you can call back in today in about 15 minutes when I end this live and redeem yourself. And I just said, I will allow you to express your thoughts and opinions without being muted as long as you are considerate. Okay? As long as you consider that I want to rebut or respond. That's a simple proposition that you're going to refuse because you know you can't handle the truth. Jack Nicholson. Okay. And so because you decide, okay, so what you cannot do is troll. So I'm gonna time you out for 5 minutes. So Pan-Nigerian, you will be timed out for 5 minutes, but I'm going to provide the phone number. So although you're timed out, that doesn't mean you can't call in. So now the only way you can commute now to us is by calling in. Okay. So this is for Pan-Nigerian. Okay. So I timed you out, Pan-Nigerian, but this is the way you can communicate. No, I don't think muting is cooking. I think cooking is cooking. I put y'all fools in the pot. I put vegetable oil in there. I didn't put virgin olive oil. I put vegetable cooking oil in there. You dig? Because I want this to sizzle. And I put that flame on high. You dig? And I began to cook. That's exactly what I did. American guy tries his best to clip segments where we spoke. All of them, and like post them on his channel to show a different narrative. They flop. They flop because potential viewers want to know the context. Because none of your viewers, the 2, 3 that come to your channel, believe that you cooked me in a conversation on history, anything concerning America. And dig, nobody believes that. All right. So, but you're no longer a wanted guest. American Dream. I'm good with you, my boy. So I don't care to invite you on anymore. So I want to just be honest with you, my boy. You won't be invited unless I'm just bored as hell. But you won't be invited again. Kwame still might have a chance, but you, American guy, you're done. You're done. I don't care to speak to you ever again. Yeah, nobody watches his channel because he's a failed tether. Like he's trying to be like chaotic truth. He's trying to, and there's a couple tethers out there that got failed channels trying to make content by challenging or disrespecting or belittling FBAs, and their viewership is terrible. Terrible. Nobody comes to the channel. All right. Nobody comes to the channel. Their viewership is terrible. Now he was given a wrench to provide his little fake sources. So I gave them a wrench to because I'm about liberty. I'm about Second Amendment, First Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth, Fifth. So the constitutional rights. You dig? Oh, I don't want to strip folks from their constitutional rights. So First Amendment, freedom of speech. Go ahead, as long as it ain't disrespectful or undermining, you dig, something like that. I'll let them go. So I didn't want them to be blocked, but I don't plan on inviting it. The American Tether. That his real name is American Tether. All right. So it's no longer what he wants it to be. His name is American Tether. So I'm no longer interested in a conversation with American Tether because the dude just can't have a discussion based on integrity and honesty. So I tried so many times with the guy. I'm good. I'm good. Yes, the mute button is real. And the mute button is what other podcasts use on their show as well. So matter of fact, I was inspired by them because I didn't mute people. I let them talk over me and I just yell over them. But folks that got one person listening, they don't understand how bad that looks live and on a replay when the host got to yell over the guest. It's sloppy because I used to think certain guys who mute were tripping. But you see how well the show goes without that confusing back and forth yelling at each other. Yeah, nobody's edified with that. American Tether. God, this is 1 Corinthians 14:34. God is not the author of confusion, and neither is FBA News and Updates. All right. So I'm going to, so if you unsubscribe, it wouldn't bother me one bit. Okay. So now we're at 18 live viewers. But y'all missed the show. Y'all need to go back and replay this. So I'm going to end this live. I'm going to come back with a Jared Teller, Tariq Nasheed. I'm going to do a recap where I'm going to give commentary. And I'll let you know where I believe Tariq Nasheed messed up and had a certain argument that I wouldn't have done. I'm just going to be flat out unbiased. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to tell you where I thought, nah, this wasn't a good angle. And I'm going to tell you where he redeemed himself. And Jared Teller was just just cooked. All right. So look forward to that next. Let me look at a few chats real fast. G says, "Well, Ron, that damn Kwame is a charlatan, and I had to check him on Kala Nation." Yeah, he's always lying. Kwame is always lying. Like he's the guy who said Ibrahim Traoré had electric cars that can compete with Ibrahim Traoré. Like by saying that dumbass statement, he'll never get respect from me on an intellectual level. That was just horrible, horrible research. Nat Turner says, "I've been tired of hearing you chew American tether out." Yeah. He's not entertaining. He got bad faith arguments. I cooked him last time we talked. I challenged him to go splice that video, try to make it seem like he won. Bro, listen, no dialogue between myself and American Tether where he can splice it up in context where he had the upper hand on me. I'm like so confident he can't do that. He has to take things out of context in order to get that done. Yeah. So like I said, all you gotta do with Kwame is bring up the Ibrahim Traoré had electric cars that can compete with Elon Musk, Tesla. That's all you got to say with that guy. All right. If they're not us, they don't deserve any rights, Ron. Nah, see, the thing is, but they will run with that narrative and twist it and have a whole art. So he'll go from 2 views to 200 if I did that. Because they will run with that narrative and say, oh, FBAs are afraid of opposition or challenge. Nah. You listen, trust me. If you fight hate with hate, you will help build them to something that they can never be by themselves. Okay. So Pan-Nigerian, all right. So he's okay. So I'm gonna leave Pan-Nigerian alone. He doesn't want to call in again. He's traumatized by the first time he called in, and I embarrassed him. Y'all can go watch the video. It's in the archives. It has Pan-Nigerian in the title. And you can see how I destroyed him. Yes, I had to meet him a few times because sometimes you got to do that. You gotta regulate, folks. Like, don't be mad at me regulating. Okay, he's not saying anything innovative. He's not saying anything unique where you had to hear that. He's about to repeat a stupid talking point, and I just wasn't beat to hear it at that time. So I cooked him and I muted his dumb ass. You damn right. All right. All right. If you don't worry. You at work? No problem, bro. It's one of those days, Monica. It's raining like hell. So brother, ain't nothing to do. I can't do much with this rain. So when you get off work, by the time you get off work, I would be reviewing the Jared Taylor verse Tariq Nasheed, and I'm going to give an unbiased, honest assessment. I'm going to tell you where Tariq messed up at, because I still like the same talking points he gave Jared Taylor, he gave Myron Gaines, and I already critiqued that debate with Myron Gaines. I feel like Tariq keep going somewhere where I don't advise any FBA's ADOS to go. It's not. Let's just focus on America. All right. If you want to prove white supremacy, systemic racism, just stay within America. Let them run somewhere else, and you cook them when they do that. But I wouldn't lead with that, and that's where I disagree with Tariq. He's leading with global supremacy. I'll pass because there's too many countries, there's too many cities and areas where you got to defend, and we're not going to be well educated, well versed in all those different countries, locations, things like that. We're not. But America is very easy to prove systemic racism, white supremacy, the legacy of slavery, disenfranchisement of Foundation Black Americans. So I like to stick it to America. And when I do go to somewhere else, I name the country by name. Tariq doesn't do that. He says global white supremacy, and now Jared Taylor gets to name the country, and now Myron Gaines gets to name the country, and they're trying to name the country where the less white supremacy is present. So I wouldn't do that. Before vengeance. Hey, yeah. So let me get off here, and hey, everybody, we got 22 live viewers. I expect y'all to come back in the next 10 to 15 minutes while I do the recap with Jared Taylor. It was really 2-on-1 because the moderator was Jared Taylor Cantman. He kept saying what he got to say. Same thing with Cornell West. When it was Cornell West versus Candace Owens, the moderator was siding with Candace Owens and adding to her points. All right, so American Tether, Kwame. Yeah, so Kwame could call in because he's more honest. he got a little more integrity than American Dream. FBA B1, we out. Hey, like I said, man, don't disappear. Pull up for the Tariq recap debate. Wheezy.